Matthew Golden has proven he's the real best wide receiver in the 2025 NFL Draft. Here's why. Texas wide receiver Matthew Golden lit up the NFL Combine with the fastest 40 for a receiver. Ryan, are you in on him possibly being wide receiver one?
Oh, I'm out, man. I couldn't be further out on that take. I understand that we're going to hyper-focus on the 4.29, which is an incredible number. I think it was actually 4.28 official. But when I watch Matthew Golden's film this past year at Texas, I see a great route runner. I see some really good hands. I see nuance. But if you're telling me that that's a 4.2 athlete on film, I completely disagree.
I understand that, and I understand the speed concerns. But the reason why I like him as my top receiver over Luther Burden and Tedero McMillan is because in a year with so many question marks for the other guys in that discussion, I feel like I want to go with the player who's the most well-balanced. You talked about the route running, his hands. He's been able to make some unbelievable catches, and I think it's one of the most underrated parts of his game. But Tedero McMillan, we talked on this channel, we're worried about the separation. Luther Burden, we're worried a little bit about why he suddenly had this massive drop-off in production. So if I'm going with somebody who I can trust to be a really good second receiver in my offense, I'd rather go with that than go for the boomer bust of taking McMillan or Burden and them not panning out.
See, I'm the complete opposite in this conversation, right? If I'm talking about a kid potential as a first rounder, a guy that I am going to draft to be my dude, my go-to pass catcher in an offense, I want a guy that has a ceiling that I can hope to reach towards. I understand the allure of a player like Matthew Golden. He does bring a really good floor to the table. I could see him being a very solid to plus wide receiver two in an offense. But there is a world where a player like Luther Burden out of Missouri becomes the go-to option in an offense, and I am much more willing to bank on that type of player early than I am to draft somebody like Matthew Golden and the style that he brings to the table.
Ryan, let's look at Matthew Golden's background as a player. He was originally playing for the University of Houston. He was a very productive kick returner. He had an amazing first season at Houston, and then he transferred to Texas. He had this final stretch of time at the University of Texas where he lit things up. It feels like Steve Sarkisian realized, hey, we got to get this kid the football, because everything leading up to that, he wasn't the focus. It was Isaiah Bond. What else can we let our listeners know about who this guy was and what his background is like?
I mean, he's a super unique player. He's out of Klein Cain High School in the state of Texas, so he stayed at home to play for the Houston Cougars. But he's a rare player, Joe. You don't see Houston often get four-star, top 150 caliber wide receiver recruits in a class, right? And that's what they got with Matthew Golden. And that's why they had that instant success as a senior, as a freshman, had nearly 600 yards. He had a little bit of a down year in 2023, but was able to enter the transfer portal out of Texas. Full like transparency though, I did not love Matthew Golden as a receiver at Houston. He was more used as a guy that was going to run a lot of bubble screens. He was kind of the slot dynamo. I think that going to Texas was a great decision for him because he fell into a role that was able to move him around a lot more and able to utilize more of his all-around skill set to affect multiple levels of the field rather than just one type of football player.
Per 247 Sports, he was pretty underrated. He was a four-star recruit in Texas. It's hard to stand out in the state of Texas. He was the 150th overall recruit, the 25th wide receiver, and the 25th recruit in the state of Texas. And you're right, when he was at Houston, it was a little weird seeing him and then how he was finally used at Texas. And I think that's part of the reason why Sark didn't start using him as their primary target and as more of a shifty route runner that they could throw the ball to along the sideline was where he had a number of his really highlight reel catches that he put on film. It feels like he thought that what Houston was using him for was how that they had to deploy him. And then finally it came clear that this is their best guy. It was not Isaiah Bond.
Well, and not only was it not Isaiah Bond at Houston, Joe, I was much more excited about Sammy Brown transferring from Houston to Miami than I was about Matthew Golden going from Houston to Texas because he was utilized in a way that accentuated his strengths. I don't think that they did that well at Houston with Matthew Golden. Again, like they're just throwing bubble screens to him all day. Like that's kind of what he was. But yeah, early in the season at Texas, you thought Isaiah Bond was going to be the guy. And then you also got some Gunnar Helm mixed in at tight end, obviously, to be that type of pass game weapon as well. But down the course of the stretch of the season, when they needed a play in the passing game, think about that big play, obviously, during the Arizona State game, it was Matthew Golden that they were turning to for the Texas Longhorns.
Ryan, let's dish out a pro comp here for Matthew Golden. Now, this is a little bit lofty, but if we're talking about speed comparisons, usage comparisons in an offense in the NFL, I don't think he fully gets to this point, but Garrett Wilson of the Jets coming out of Ohio State, very similar builds, and the way that they played when they were in college in those final stretches. I do not think that he goes on to be an offensive rookie of the year type player. I don't think he goes on to be a team's primary target. But the way that Garrett Wilson has been so impactful for the Jets, I think Golden can supply the same level of impact.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of that Z hybrid type player that can move around a little bit too, like Garrett Wilson can. I don't think that even though technically Golden ran a faster 40 than Garrett Wilson, I don't think that they have the same level of juice. I think Wilson has more explosiveness and more long speed, but I think the thing that Golden, he brings a lot of the same things that you love about Garrett Wilson, the route runner, the nuance, like those things. So maybe if we want to mix this up a little bit, this is Garrett Wilson with ankle weights.
Maybe that extra weight for Matthew Golden slowing him down, according to you, based on him not having that same type of game speed. But I do agree with you that the on the field speed and explosiveness is just different from Garrett Wilson. Why I don't think Matthew Golden fully gets there, but the way that he can be deployed, I think, is a really, really strong comparison. Folks, let us know in the comments below, how early would you draft Matthew Golden? Hit that like button if you enjoyed this video and subscribe for more. We'll talk to you later.